I mean, imagine spending like $200 billion on a completely groundbreaking technology.
Right, just a massive sum of money.
Yeah, exactly. And then having Wall Street actively punish your stock for doing it. I mean, that is the completely bizarre reality for big tech this week.
It really is, yeah.
But before we look at that massive gamble, we have to look at a literal missile strike in the Caspian Sea, a brutal heat dome baking the U.S., and a sudden and highly controversial change in how the Pentagon is classifying combat casualties.
There is just a lot happening all at once right now.
There really is. Today is Tuesday, July 28, 2026, and our mission for this deep dive is to connect these massive global shockwaves directly to the economic ripples that are, hitting your wallet.
Exactly.
But before we jump in, a quick note. Our sources today cover some highly charged political developments, both domestic and international. So our goal here isn't to take a side or endorse any viewpoints, but simply to give you the most objective, impartial look at what the original source material is reporting, so you can just understand the facts on the ground.
Right, just laying out the facts.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. How do, military maneuvers in the Middle East and Eastern Europe actually dictate what happens to our economy back home?
Well, I mean, the connection really starts with the sheer scale of the geopolitical chessboard right now, and the opening move just happened in the Oval Office.
Oh, right, the meeting with Trump and Netanyahu?
Exactly. President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu just held their first face-to-face meeting since the Iran war began back on February 28th.
Which feels like a lifetime ago, honestly.
It does, yeah. And the White House categorized this meeting as positive and productive. Both leaders basically reaffirmed a really hard red line on Iran's nuclear capabilities.
But no backing down there.
No, not at all. We are seeing this sort of dual-track strategy where, on one hand, Trump is signaling that talks are ongoing, but on the other hand, he's simultaneously threatening to resume military strikes.
Right, which, I mean, that threat of force is always a massive lever. But the financial warfare happening in the background seems like even more volatile to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the sources highlight this major threat from Iran's Qatam al central headquarters. They are explicitly threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz to any entity that accepts payouts from frozen Iranian funds.
Which is a huge escalation.
Yeah. Can you explain the actual mechanism behind that threat? Because that sounds, incredibly specific.
It is very specific, and it directly targets a proposed U.S. maritime damage plan.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, the concept is that the U.S. would seize currently frozen Iranian financial assets, right? And then they'd use that money to compensate shipping companies that have suffered maritime disruptions.
Oh, wow. I can see why Iran wouldn't like that.
Yeah, exactly. Iran's foreign minister Arachi is labeling this whole mechanism an incendiary precedent because from Tehran's perspective, this isn't just regular sanctions anymore.
Right. It's basically taking their money.
Exactly. It's the outright reallocation of their sovereign wealth. So their counter threat is to weaponize geography.
By shutting down the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. If a company accepts those seized funds, Iran is saying they will block their passage through the strait, effectively choking off a massive artery of the global oil supply.
Which makes the diplomatic back channels even more critical right now. But there is this glaring contradiction in the reporting that I want to ask about.
The Oman situation.
Yeah, exactly. So Omani mediators are claiming there is tangible progress being made in U.S.-Iran peace talks. But at the exact same time, Tehran's foreign ministry is standing in front of microphones, publicly denying that any direct talks with Washington are even taking place.
What's fascinating here is how that disconnect proves the absolute fragility of this entire situation.
Oh, so?
Well, we are basically looking at a diplomatic Jenga tower. You have this back-channel reality in Oman where, pragmatic concessions might actually be happening.
Right.
But alongside that, you have a public-facing reality where Tehran feels compelled to project absolute defiance.
So they have to look tough for their audience.
Exactly. And the issue is one leaked document or one miscalculated public statement, and the entire framework just collapses.
And pulling a block out of that Jenga tower isn't just a Middle East problem, right?
Yeah.
Because Eastern Europe is intimately entangled in all of this.
Very much so, yes.
Because Ukrainian President Zelensky was also just in Washington. He held a meeting with Trump to discuss Patriot interceptors and diplomacy to end the Ukraine war. He also attended the memorial service for the late Senator Lindsey Graham.
Right. He's been very active diplomatically.
Yeah. And on top of that, Zelensky was just in London on Monday, meeting with the UK's new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham.
Right. I mean, Ukraine is aggressively shoring up its Western alliances right now, and that is crucial context for the military escalation that occurred over the
To
weekend.
strike in the Caspian Sea.
Exactly. Ukrainian forces launched a missile strike on an Iranian commercial vessel in the Caspian Sea, which resulted in the death of one sailor.
Wow.
And the Kremlin immediately condemned this strike. They officially classified it as a direct assault on Iran.
I mean, the entanglement there is just staggering.
It's incredibly complex.
Right. Like, Ukraine is striking Iranian assets, Russia is stepping in to rhetorically defend Iran, and the U.S. is trying to mediate with both Ukraine and Israel at the exact same time.
All while managing domestic pressures.
Yes. And that human toll is becoming a major point of domestic friction. Like, the Pentagon just updated the casualty count for the Iran war, which has now topped 600 wounded and 18 killed.
Which are sobering numbers.
They really are.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, isn't moving casualty numbers into a brand new reporting category exactly the kind of, like, bureaucratic sleight of hand that makes people lose trust?
We're talking about the 4 July deaths.
Yeah. They just quietly shifted 4 July deaths into this completely vague overseas operations bucket.
Right. And, when a Defense Department changes its categorization methodology mid-conflict like that, it fundamentally disrupts the ability of independent analysts and the public to track the true human cost of a specific theater.
Because the data gets muddied.
Exactly. By blending those 4 deaths into a broader operational category, critics argue the Pentagon is basically obscuring the localized severity of the Iran conflict.
Right.
It essentially transforms a transparent casualty tracker into an opaque dataset.
And speaking of domestic flashpoints, we have a major procedural maneuver happening with the U.S. election infrastructure right now.
The Supreme Court filing.
Yeah, exactly. The Trump administration filed an emergency application to the Supreme Court to restore provisions of an executive order regarding mail-in voting restrictions.
Right.
And they completely bypassed a federal appeals court that had literally just blocked the order on Saturday, calling it an unprecedented intrusion.
Yeah, and bypassing the appellate level to seek emergency intervention from SCOTUS is a very rare and aggressive legal strategy.
Is it?
Oh, absolutely. It signals that the administration views the appellate court's injunction not just as a minor legal setback, but as an immediate existential threat to their electoral framework heading into the midterms.
Wow. Okay, so how does this incredibly volatile global picture actually hit the listener's wallet?
It all flows right through the Strait of Hormuz.
Right, because of oil.
Exactly. Those tensions dictate global oil supply. Oil dictates inflation, and inflation dictates the Federal Reserve.
Got it. So they're all linked.
Completely. The macroeconomic data is basically entirely hostage to the geopolitical reality right now.
Which explains Monday's market reaction.
Right. Because of the diplomatic pause and a perceived easing of tensions with Iran over the weekend, WTI crude actually plummeted 8.1% on Monday, settling at $82 a barrel.
That's a massive drop.
It is, but the broader market reaction was highly fragmented. The Dow was up about 0.5%, the S&P was totally flat, and we saw this distinct rotation where investors started abandoning high-growth sectors just to seek safety in defensive stocks.
Which sets up a really, really tense week for the Federal Open Market Committee.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, their two-day meeting opened Tuesday, and the consensus is that Chair Warsh is going to hold interest rates steady at 3.50 to 3.75% on Wednesday.
That's the expectation, yes.
But from what I'm reading, nobody is just watching the rate decision itself.
Yeah.
Everyone is meticulously analyzing the language in the statement and the press conference to see how the Fed is modeling this energy-driven inflation.
Right, because Chair Warsh is in a really unenviable position right now.
How so?
Well, the data models he relies on are just being constantly warped by geopolitical mood swings. The Fed is mandated to control inflation and maximize employment, but they just received a jarring signal from the manufacturing sector.
The durable goods numbers.
Exactly. June U.S. durable goods orders rose a mere 0.3%.
And the consensus estimate was, what, 1.6%?
Yes.
I mean, that is a massive miss.
It really is. A miss of that magnitude indicates that businesses and consumers are heavily delaying long-term financing decisions.
They're getting spooked.
Right. They are looking at the geopolitical instability and basically deciding to hoard capital rather than invest in machinery or appliances. It is a flashing warning light for a broader manufacturing slowdown.
It sounds like the Fed is trying to land a 747 on a runway that keeps physically moving.
That is a great way to put it.
Right. Like they're trying to nail interest rates, but global oil swings and this sudden drop in manufacturing just keep shifting the target entirely.
That captures the dilemma perfectly, because if Warsh keeps rates elevated, he risks turning that manufacturing deceleration into an outright recession.
Right.
But if he signals that rate cuts are coming, and then, say, a breakdown in Oman causes Iran to shut down the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow, oil spikes back over $100 and inflation just comes roaring back.
So they're trapped.
Exactly. The margin for error is effectively zero.
And because the Fed dictates the cost of capital, we have to look at the companies spending the most capital in human history right now.
Yes. Big tech.
Big tech. This is earnings week, and we are witnessing an absolute AI capital arms race.
The scale of capital expenditure is honestly difficult to comprehend.
It's billions, right?
Hundreds of billions. And we are finally seeing Wall Street demand accountability for these massive outlays. The market is aggressively scrutinizing the gap between what these companies are spending to build AI infrastructure and when they will actually generate a profit from it.
So what does this all actually mean? Because Wall Street is actively punishing companies like Microsoft who are spending billions to build AI even when their backlog is up 99%, but rewarding Apple for keeping their wallet shut and just partnering up. I mean, that feels backwards to me.
It does seem counterintuitive at first glance.
Let's look at the spenders reporting on Wednesday. Microsoft expects $87.7 billion in revenue, 4.24 EPS, and their Azure cloud growth is over 40%.
Right.
Their commercial backlog is up 99%. Yet the stock is down nearly 20% year to date. And then you have Meta expecting $60.2 billion in revenue, 7.14 EPS, but they're also down about 10% this year as investors panic over their AI ad focus and the crazy burn rate at Reality Labs.
Yeah, and don't forget Amazon reporting on Thursday.
Oh, right, Amazon.
They are projecting AWS growth between 31 and 34%, fueled by initiatives like Project Lighthouse, which is their new AI-curated video feed.
Okay.
But the number that has analysts really sweating is Amazon's massive $200 billion CapEx commitment for 2026.
$200 billion. That is unbelievable. And then you have Apple reporting on Thursday, which, by the way, will be Tim Cook's final earnings call as CEO.
Right, the end of an era.
Truly. And Apple is up 23% this year. They're the best-performing Magnificent Seven stock. And they achieved that by utilizing an AI partnership model instead of, building these $100 billion data centers.
Right. And Wall Street's logic here really comes down to immediate monetization versus long-term infrastructure risk.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Think of it like this. Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon are building the railroad. They are buying the chips, securing the power grids, and taking on all the depreciation risk.
Okay, that makes sense.
But Apple is simply running their train on someone else's tracks. They are integrating third-party AI models into the iPhone ecosystem, presenting it to a captive audience of over 1 billion users, and immediately driving hardware upgrade cycles without the massive CapEx burden.
I see. So investors are flocking to Apple's low-risk profitability.
Exactly.
And that panic over infrastructure spending is heavily dragging down the semiconductor sector, too. I mean, chip stocks are selling off hard. Micron has dropped below $800. AMD and Marvell are sliding. And it actually dragged the NASDAQ down over 1%.
Yeah, the market is getting jittery.
Right. Analysts at Jefferies are noting that memory chip prices are moderating now.
Because the hyperscalers, the Microsofts and Amazons of the world, they're the primary customers for those memory chips.
Right.
If Wall Street forces them to pull back on their $200 billion CapEx plans, the chip makers lose their main revenue pipeline.
That makes total sense.
But interestingly, while the hardware side faces a potential bottleneck, the software side is just accelerating.
Oh, yeah. Anthropic just released Claude Opus 5.
They did.
And from what I read, it is approaching the performance of Fable 5, but at literally half the price. It features a staggering 1 million token context window.
Which is massive.
Right. And it introduces this new effort toggle, which basically allows users to dynamically scale the compute power applied to a specific prompt.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the rapid evolution of these models explains a very specific financial move happening in Washington right now.
The lobbying money.
Exactly. In the first half of 2026, OpenAI doubled its federal lobbying spend to a record $2.22 million.
Wow.
They are aggressively pushing to shape regulations around chip exports, copyright law, and data center permitting ahead of the midterm elections.
Basically, they're trying to build a legislative moat to protect their investment.
Exactly. Because when you are deploying capital at this scale, regulatory risk is just as dangerous as technological risk.
Right. One bad law could ruin everything.
Yeah. They need favorable government procurement rules and manageable copyright frameworks just to ensure their models can operate legally and, profitably.
I mean, it is just surreal to think about these tech executives sitting in pristine climate-controlled boardrooms, plotting out AI legislation, while outside those windows, the physical and cultural realities on the ground are completely boiling over.
Well, the juxtaposition is really stark, isn't it?
It's crazy.
We are tracking a synchronous failure of ecological and infrastructural systems globally, driven by this unprecedented heat.
Yeah, the situation in Europe right now is dire. France and Spain are enduring a heat wave pushing well past 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
Historic.
It is, and this has escalated these massive mega fires near Bordeaux, forcing the evacuation of over 360,000 people. I mean, a dozen different nations are currently surging resources just to help fight the flames.
And unfortunately, the atmospheric blocking patterns causing that European heat wave are mirrored right here in North America.
Right, the fires out west.
Exactly. In Oregon, wildfires have now scorched over 1 million acres. Minnesota is battling fires burning tens of thousands of acres.
And honestly, you might be listening to this right now in the Northeast, breathing in the haze and smoke drifting across the continent. Or, you might be in the South, sweating through a brutal heat dome.
Texas is getting hit hard.
Oh, terribly. The Dallas-Fort Worth area is staring down 103-degree temperatures today, with the heat index peaking between 106 and 110 degrees. And there is literally zero relief from a cold front until the weekend.
And then further north, the upper Midwest is bracing for severe storms.
The atmosphere is just supercharged with kinetic energy right now.
It is. And, when the physical environment becomes this hostile, it acts as an accelerant for societal friction.
Like people just lose their patience.
More than that, we see this repeatedly in the data. Prolonged environmental stress strongly correlates with spikes in localized violence and cultural conflict.
And that friction is manifesting in deeply tragic ways right now. Like in Germany, a massive manhunt just concluded when Berlin police killed a suspect who drove a vehicle into a Pride Festival celebration.
Right, and authorities are treating it as a targeted anti-LGBTQ plus attack.
Exactly. And then in northeastern Nigeria, armed attackers raided a village in Borno State, killing at least 30 people. It just feels like the global tension is fracturing local communities.
Yeah, it creates this pervasive sense of instability, and that fatigue trickles down into literally every facet of daily life, including corporate consumer behavior.
Which brings us to Cracker Barrel.
Yes, the Cracker Barrel situation.
I mean, you might be listening to this thinking, why do I care about a restaurant's logo when there's a war going on and the forests are burning? But the situation at Cracker Barrel is actually a fascinating microcosm of this exact cultural exhaustion.
It really is.
So CEO Julie Masino is stepping down, right? And she's being replaced by David Deneau of Bloomin' Brands. But her departure comes after this failed rebranding effort like updating the logo and modernizing the interior triggered an absolute revolt from their fan base.
Right, and it highlights a deep psychological resistance to change.
Interesting. How so?
Well, when the macro environment, geopolitics, the economy, the climate feels chaotic and unpredictable, consumers fiercely protect their microenvironments.
They want stability somewhere.
Exactly. They want their comfort food and their familiar institutions to remain exactly as they left them. Altering that baseline triggers an outsized emotional response.
Which is precisely why, when the world runs this hot, culture relies heavily on the ultimate release valve, right? Sports and entertainment.
Gotcha.
And right now, the sports world is providing some massive storylines. I mean, LeBron James has officially moved to the Philadelphia 76ers.
That was a huge shakeup.
Completely reshuffling the power dynamic in the Eastern Conference.
It really does. And the endurance of his career continues to defy conventional sports analytics.
Seriously, he's been playing forever.
Right. Sports books are already taking heavy action on whether a player at his advanced stage can still average 20-plus points a game in the 2026-27 season.
I mean, the sheer longevity is unmatched. And while basketball is looking ahead to the fall, Major League Baseball is in the pressure cooker right now.
The trade deadline.
Exactly. The non-waiver trade deadline is this Thursday, July 31. The Phillies, the Red Sox, and the Giants are all aggressively pursuing starting pitching and bullpen arms just to gear up for a playoff run.
Yeah, and while those team sports dominate the domestic headlines, the most significant commercial sports story is actually coming out of cycling right now.
Oh, right, the Tour de France.
Yes. Tadej Pogacar secured his 5th Tour de France victory on Sunday, tying the all-time record.
Which is just a monumental athletic achievement. But how does that translate economically?
Well, historic milestones act as massive catalysts for capital.
Okay, so the money follows the records.
Exactly. Pogacar's record time win has triggered this huge wave of sponsor and broadcast deal renegotiations. It is fundamentally reshaping the commercial economics of professional cycling heading into the 2026 aftermath.
Wow.
Yeah, it proves that transcendent performance can still move millions in global capital almost overnight.
It always comes back to the economics, doesn't it? Well, we have covered an immense amount of ground today, from the diplomatic standoff in the Oval Office to the Fed's impossible target, the billions pouring into AI, and the literal fires burning across the globe. Thank you for coming along on this deep dive to get well informed.
It is a vast amount of information to synthesize, I know.
Yeah.
But I want to leave you with one final connection that sort of merges two of our major themes today.
All right, what is it?
Consider this. OpenAI spent a record $2.2 million in the first half of this year paying human beings to lobby the government, right?
Right.
But with Anthropic releasing the Claude Opus 5 model, specifically featuring that dynamic effort toggle to scale compute power, how long until these AI companies stop paying human lobbyists entirely?
Oh, wow.
Right. How long until they just use their own advanced models to auto-generate and submit perfect, legally binding legislation directly to Congress, effectively taking the human effort out of writing their own regulations?
A machine lobbying the government to protect the machine. I mean, that is a truly wild concept to mull over as you watch the headlines this week. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.